The wedding hall glittered with golden chandeliers, polished marble floors, and the sweet scent of roses drifting through the air. Every seat was filled with wealthy guests dressed in their most expensive gowns and tuxedos. The bride, Serena Logant, in a white gown adorned with diamonds, stood proudly at the altar, basking in the admiration of her guests. To her, this was not just a wedding, but a display of power and prestige. She had always wanted the world to see her as someone untouchable, but that illusion was about to shatter. The grand double doors swung open, and in walked Alexander Drake, the millionaire Serena once left behind. He was tall, dressed in a sharp black suit, and walked with an air of calm confidence. His appearance alone caused heads to turn, but what truly made the hall go silent was the woman at his side. She was not adorned with jewels. Her dress, though clean and simple, was borrowed and far from designer. Her shoes were plain, her hair tied back without luxury styling. This was Emma, a woman Alexander had met on the streets only weeks ago, homeless and struggling to survive. Yet tonight, she walked into the hall with her head held high, her arm linked with his. Gasps filled the room. Whispering spread like wildfire. Who is she? Why would Alexander bring her here? Isn't that the homeless woman from downtown? The bride's smile faltered as her eyes narrowed on the couple. Alexander led Emma confidently through the crowd and took a seat near the front, his hand never leaving hers. Emma could feel the eyes burning into her, but she stood tall, her dignity unshaken. For years she had been invisible, treated as less than human. Tonight, everyone was forced to see her. The ceremony continued, but tension filled the room. Serena. Every glance darted toward her ex-fiancé and his mysterious guest. Anger burned in her chest. Why would Alexander dare to crash her wedding with that woman? When the priest began the vows, Serena could no longer resist. She interrupted, her voice sharp and venomous. Alexander, what are you doing here? And who is this? This woman you've dragged in. The room fell silent. All eyes shifted. Emma froze, but Alexander squeezed her hand gently, giving her strength. This woman, Alexander said firmly, is Emma. She is someone the world overlooked, but I saw her. She has more strength, more dignity, and more honesty than anyone in this room. His words cut through the silence like a blade. Serena's face reddened. She sneered. Strength, dignity. She's nothing but a beggar you pulled off the street, and you bring her here, to my wedding. How dare you humiliate me? Emma felt her heart race, but she could not let Alexander defend her alone. She stepped forward, her voice, though soft at first, grew steady with each word. You see me as a beggar, Serena, but what does that make you? You left Alexander because he refused to bend to your greed. You measure people by wealth, not by heart. Maybe I don't have jewels or a mansion, but I have something you can't buy. She placed her hand on her chest. I have gratitude, loyalty, and love, and that's why he chose to stand by me. The guests gasped. Murmurs spread again, but this time they were in Emma's favor. Her courage surprised everyone. A woman who once had nothing was speaking truth in the face of wealth and cruelty. Serena's composure cracked. You think you can embarrass me in front of my guests, in front of my groom? She snapped. But when she turned toward the man standing at the altar, her groom, she saw doubt in his eyes. He had heard every word, and for the first time he questioned the woman he was about to marry. The priest, caught in the middle of the storm, tried to calm the situation, but the damage was already done. The guests whispered louder, and Serena's arrogance collapsed under the weight of their judgment. Alexander placed an arm around Emma and rose to his feet. We didn't come here to ruin anything, he said calmly, his eyes locked on Serena. We came to show you and everyone here that love is not defined by status or wealth. It's defined by the heart. Emma, moved by his words, looked around the room and added softly, and sometimes, the ones you look down on are the ones who carry the greatest strength. Remember that before you judge the next person you see on the streets. The hall fell into stunned silence. For a moment, even Serena could not speak. Her pride was shattered, her carefully built image torn apart, not by Alexander, but by the very woman she had tried to humiliate. Alexander and Emma turned to leave, hand in hand, while the crowd parted silently to let them pass. Many of the guests lowered their eyes, ashamed of their earlier whispers. A few even clapped quietly, unable to hide their respect. As the grand doors closed behind them, Serena's wedding became a spectacle of scandal. The bride who thought she had everything was left with nothing but her pride in ruins, while the woman she tried to belittle walked away with dignity, love, and the admiration of everyone present. Outside, under the glow of the moonlight, Emma looked at Alexander with tears in her eyes. Why did you bring me here tonight? She asked softly. Alexander smiled, because I wanted the world to see what I see. Not a homeless woman, not a beggar, but the strongest, most beautiful woman I've ever met. Emma's heart swelled. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen, truly valued. Together, they walked into the night not as a millionaire and a homeless woman, but as two souls bound by something far greater than wealth, love and respect. Outside the glittering hall, Emma's heart was still racing. The echoes of whispers and gasps trailed behind her, but the night air felt liberating. She looked up at Alexander, still unsure if she belonged at his side. "Alexander," she whispered, her voice trembling, "they'll never stop talking about us, about me." He stopped under the glow of a tall street lamp and turned to face her, gently lifting her chin so she met his eyes. "Emma, let them talk. They've spent their whole lives measuring people by money and status. But tonight, you showed them something they've never seen: courage. And that's worth more than all the diamonds in that room." Tears shimmered in her eyes. No one had ever spoken about her like that. For years, people passed her by as if she were invisible, sometimes throwing insults harsher than the cold nights she endured. Now, she was standing here, being told she mattered. But as the two walked away, they didn't realize Serena wasn't done. Inside the hall, the guests buzzed, like a disturbed hive. Serena's groom, Michael, confronted her quietly, though his words cut sharper than a blade. "Is what she said true? Did you really leave Alexander because of money?" Serena's composure cracked. She tried to laugh it off. "Michael, don't listen to that nonsense. She's just some street rat Alexander found to embarrass me." But Michael's eyes hardened. "No." She spoke with truth in her voice, and when she did, the entire room felt it. "I didn't see a beggar tonight. Saw a woman braver than you'll ever be." His words pierced her pride. For the first time in her life, Serena's mask of superiority began to crumble in front of her groom. Meanwhile, Alexander guided Emma toward his car, parked by the steps of the grand hall. She hesitated, staring at the sleek black vehicle that gleamed under the moonlight. "I don't belong in this world," she murmured, her hand trembling on the door handle. He shook his head. "Emma, you belong wherever you choose to stand. You've already proven that." He opened the door gently for her, and as she slid in, her reflection in the polished window looked different. Not the reflection of a broken woman, but of someone who had just reclaimed her voice. As they drove off, Alexander broke the silence. "Emma, can I tell you why I brought you tonight?" She glanced at him, hesitant. "Why?" He gripped the wheel tighter, his voice filled with sincerity. "Because I wanted you to see yourself the way I see you. You think you're invisible, but the truth is you're extraordinary. When Serena left me, I thought love was just a game for the rich. But when I met you, sitting on those steps with nothing but hope in your eyes, I realized love is about the heart, not the bank account." Emma's breath caught. No one had ever spoken such words to her, but just as the car rolled into the city streets, flashing lights appeared behind them. A police car signaled for them to stop. Alexander frowned, pulling to the side. Two officers approached. One of them leaned down, looking past Alexander at Emma. His tone was sharp, dismissive. "Sir, is everything all right here? We got a call about a homeless woman causing a disturbance at the wedding hall." Emma froze, her stomach twisting in shame. Serena, of course. Serena had called. Alexander's jaw tightened. He stepped out of the car, standing tall against the officers. "This woman is with me," he said firmly. "She is not causing a disturbance. She is my guest, and she deserves respect." The officers hesitated. It wasn't every day a millionaire stood up so boldly for someone like her. After a tense moment, they nodded and backed off. But the damage was done. Nima's eyes brimmed with tears, and shame washed over her. "Does it always have to be this way?" she whispered when Alexander returned. "Why does everyone see me as nothing?" Alexander leaned closer, his voice soft but unwavering. "Because they don't know your story yet. But Emma, I promise you this: I will make sure the world sees the woman I see tonight. Not as nothing, but as everything." For the first time, Emma smiled through her tears. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She was no longer alone. And back at the wedding hall, Serena's empire of pride continued to collapse. Guests whispered about her cruelty. Her groom walked away before vows were ever exchanged. And as the doors closed on her grand wedding, Serena realized the harsh truth: she had everything money could buy, yet lost the one thing she could never purchase: respect. The city lights blurred past the car windows as Alexander and Emma drove further away from the wreckage of the wedding. Emma leaned back, her emotions still swirling. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. Deep down, fear lingered. Could this really last? Just then, Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowning. It's Serena. He silenced it, but moments later, the phone buzzed again, and again. Emma looked at him nervously. She won't stop, will she? He shook his head. Not until she realizes she can't control everything. Serena's pride is the only thing she ever truly valued. Meanwhile, back at the wedding hall, Serena's world was unraveling. Michael, her fiancé, had left in anger. Guests whispered about her cruelty, and her carefully built image was cracking apart. Furious, she paced her dressing room, mascara streaking down her cheeks. How dare he humiliate me? And with her grabbing her phone, she hatched one last plan. She called a society gossip columnist, leaking a twisted story. Millionaire Alexander humiliated his ex by parading a beggar into her wedding. It was a stunt, nothing more. The woman's a fraud. The next morning the headlines blazed. Emma's picture snapped outside the hall in her borrowed gown was splashed across news sites. But instead of mockery, the reaction was the opposite of what Serena expected. The comment section flooded with empathy. That woman spoke the truth we all needed to hear. She has more grace than the bride. Money can't buy proved that, for the first time, strangers were seeing Emma not as a homeless woman, but as a symbol of courage. Emma sat frozen in Alexander's penthouse, staring at the screen. They're talking about me, she whispered. Her heart pounded, overwhelmed. Alexander smiled softly. Yes, and they're listening to you. But Serena wasn't finished yet. She stormed into Alexander's office later that day, rage boiling. You think you've won? You think parading your charity case makes you look noble? She'll never belong in this world, Alexander. She's nothing but a stain on your reputation. Emma, who had come to return the dress Alexander had lent her, overheard every word. Her hands trembled, but instead of shrinking away, she stepped into the room. Her voice was steady. No, Serena, I may not have money or jewels, but at least I have something you'll never have: dignity. You left Alexander for wealth and lost love in the process. I came into his life with nothing, and yet he gave me something you could never give him: respect. The words sliced through the room like lightning. Serena's face twisted in fury, but this time, there was no one left to applaud her cruelty. The staff in the office, who had gathered quietly, looked at her with disgust. Alexander stood silently by Emma's side, pride shining in his eyes. Serena's voice cracked as she screamed, "You'll regret this." But when she stormed out, the sound of the door slamming felt like the final end of her reign. Silence fell. Emma turned to Alexander, her chest rising and falling as if she had just fought the greatest battle of her life. For a moment, she feared she'd said too much. But Alexander reached out, took her hand gently and whispered, "You were magnificent." Emma's eyes welled with tears, not of sorrow but of relief. For the first time, she realized she wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen. Weeks later, Serena's story became yesterday's gossip, while Emma's story continued to grow. People reached out to help her, not with pity, but with admiration. She started volunteering at shelters, using her newfound platform to give others the courage she had discovered. And every time she walked into a room with Alexander by her side, she no longer saw herself as the homeless woman dragged into a world where she didn't belong. She was Emma, the woman who turned shame into strength, cruelty into courage, and despair into hope. That's Alexander whispered to her one evening. You didn't just change my life, Emma, you changed everyone's who saw you that night. Emma smiled, her heart full at last. And somewhere, far away in the ruins of her broken pride, Serena finally realized the truth. Money could buy a wedding, a dress, a diamond ring, but it could never buy the respect Emma had earned in a single night. Life, after the wedding scandal, was strangely calm for Alexander and Emma, at least at first. Emma was adjusting to living in Alexander's penthouse, though she never stopped feeling a twinge of guilt. "This place isn't mine," she would whisper to herself as she gazed at the glittering skyline. But Alexander saw things differently. One evening, he placed a key in her palm. "Emma, I don't want you to think of this as a place you're borrowing. This is your home now if you want it to be." Her throat tightened. No one had ever offered her a real home since she was a child, yet the world wasn't ready to let her escape her past so easily. Soon, the whispers began. Society women who envied her spread rumors. "She's a gold digger." Others sneered at Alexander, the millionaire who threw away status for a street beggar. At a charity gala, Alexander insisted on bringing her, too. Emma felt the sting of those whispers firsthand. Women in glittering gowns eyed her like she didn't belong. Men looked past her as if she were invisible. One sharp-tongued guest smirked and said aloud, "Well, at least she cleans up better than most beggars." Laughter rippled through the group. Emma froze. humiliation burning in her chest. But before she could walk away, Alexander stepped forward, his voice steady and powerful. "Funny, isn't it?" he said, his eyes sweeping the room. "All of you in designer clothes, but not one of you has half the courage Emma showed that night she faced the truth while the rest of you hide behind lies and luxury. If respect is measured by wealth, then maybe it's time we redefine what it means to be rich." The room went silent. Emma's heart pounded as she realized Alexander wasn't just defending her, he was declaring his loyalty to her in front of everyone. Still, deep down, Emma wrestled with her own fear. Late one night, she confessed, "I'm afraid you'll regret this, Alexander. You gave up a woman from your world for someone like me." He took her hands gently. "Emma, don't you see? You are my world now. You gave me something Serena never could: truth, sincerity, and the ability to feel alive again." Their bond grew stronger, but so did the storm gathering outside. Serena, humiliated and abandoned, wasn't done yet. She had lost her fiancée's, her reputation, and her social standing, and as she sat in her empty mansion, staring at her reflection, one thought burned in her mind: if I can't rise again, I'll make sure Emma falls. One evening, as Emma walked alone through the city streets after volunteering at the shelter, a black car slowed beside her. The window rolled down, and Serena's voice, smooth and venomous, called out, "Enjoy playing the princess, Emma. But remember, these fairy tales don't last forever." Emma's breath caught, realizing Serena wasn't just bitter. She was planning something far worse, and for the first time, Emma wondered if her new life and the fragile happiness she had found was in real danger. The tension grew heavier. After Serena's chilling warning, Emma tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just bitterness talking. But Alexander noticed the way she jumped at sudden sounds, or how her eyes darted nervously in crowded places. One evening, as they prepared to attend a major business gala, Emma hesitated at the door. "Alexander, what if she tries something? What if Serena shows up?" He adjusted his cufflinks, his voice firm. "If she does, let her. She can't touch us, not when we stand together." The gala was held at one of the city's grandest hotels, a dazzling ballroom filled with chandeliers and the smell of roses. Powerful figures from politics, finance, and media filled the space. Cameras flashed as Alexander arrived with Emma on his arm, her elegant dress turning heads. But lurking in the corner, Serena watched. Her smile was icy, her plan precise. She had bribed a gossip journalist to run a cruel headline: "Millionaire's new girlfriend," from homeless shelter to high society scandal or charity case. Within hours, phones buzzed across the ballroom. Emma caught the whispers, the way people suddenly turned their heads, pointing at her as if she were an exhibit instead of a guest. Her chest tightened, panic flooding her. She excused herself and rushed to the powder room, staring into the mirror. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here." Serena stepped out from the shadows, her reflection suddenly appearing beside Emma's. "See, no matter how much makeup you wear, the world still sees the beggar in you." Her words cut like knives, but Emma, though shaken, didn't break. With trembling breath, she whispered, "You can keep calling me that, Serena, but the only reason you hate me is because I refuse to be what you are, a liar." Serena's eyes flashed with rage. She leaned close, hissing, "Enjoy your place at Alexander's side while it lasts, because soon, you'll lose him, and everyone will know you are nothing but a charity project." When Emma returned to the ballroom, Alexander immediately noticed her pale face. She told him everything. His jaw tightened, fury burning in his eyes. He didn't care if half the room was watching. He pulled Emma close and kissed her forehead, then, raising his voice loud enough for people nearby to hear, he said, "Emma isn't my charity. She's my choice, and unlike some people, she didn't need money or status to win my heart. She won it by being real." A ripple went through the crowd. Some people nodded with respect, others looked uncomfortable, but the gossip headlines suddenly lost their sting. Emma squeezed his hand, her fear slowly melting into strength. Yet, in the back of the ballroom, Serena was seething. Her plan to humiliate Emma had only brought them closer, and that night, as she drove away in her black car, she swore through clenched teeth, "If I can't destroy her with shame, I'll destroy her with lies." The night after the gala, Alexander's words of loyalty echoed in Emma's mind. For the first time, she felt she could face the world at his side. But Serena wasn't done. Her wounded pride pushed her into dangerous territory. A week later, Emma was on her way to volunteer at a local shelter when her phone buzzed with dozens of notifications. Her heart sank as she opened the news. Scandal breaks. Emma Winters accused of fraud and theft from local charity. The article contained fabricated evidence, documents showing Emma had siphoned funds from the very shelter she once slept in. Of course, it was all false, but the public didn't know that. Emma's hands trembled. She could barely breathe as she saw her photo plastered across tabloids with headlines like, "Millionaire's girlfriend exposed as con artist." Alexander rushed home when he found Emma sitting on the couch, her face pale and tears streaking down her cheeks. "It's her," Emma whispered. "It's Serena, she's framing me." Alexander's fury was volcanic. Then she's just signed her own downfall. He immediately called his legal team and private investigators. Within hours, they discovered Serena had bribed a former shelter worker to forge signatures and create false records. It was a deliberate setup, but damage had already been done. Reporters camped outside Alexander's mansion, shouting cruel questions. "Emma, did you trick him for his money? Is this a romance or a scam?" Emma stayed inside, shaken and afraid. "Maybe I should just leave. Alexander, you don't deserve this scandal. You're too important to be dragged down by me." Alexander dropped to one knee in front of her, holding her hands tightly. "Emma, listen to me. I don't care about tabloids. I don't care about whispers. I care about us. You saved me from a loveless life, from marrying someone like Serena. You showed me what love is, and I'll burn the whole world before I let her take you away." His words ignited something inside. Emma courage she thought she'd lost. That night, Alexander held a press conference. Cameras flashed as he stood beside Emma, his hand firm around hers. He faced the reporters head-on. "These accusations are not only false, they're malicious. The woman you see here once slept on the floor of a shelter, not because she was a criminal, but because life was cruel. She has nothing to hide. But my ex-fiancée, Serena, cannot say the same. My team already has proof that she forged every single piece of this so-called evidence, and we will see her in court." The room erupted with shocked gasps. Emma, though still trembling, stood taller as Alexander's words echoed across every news outlet. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving Serena's attacks, she was fighting back. Meanwhile, Serena watched a live broadcast from her penthouse, her face twisting with rage. She hurled a glass at the wall, shards scattering across the floor. "So, you want a war, Alexander?" she snarled. "Fine, you'll get one. And Emma will wish she never walked into your life."